Hello and Grüß Gott. On this video we're going to be talking about doing some maintenance on our hot water heater. Now we live in the desert Southwest where there's a lot of calcium carbonate in the water. So the thing you really want to do fairly often, every 3 to 6 months, is you want to attach a hose down at the bottom and you want to flush the hot water heater out and get all that sediment out, like I said, every 3 to 6 months. And I also wanted to give a warning that this is a pressure relief valve on the side, and you could actually manually open it. You don't want to do that because most of these components are made in foreign countries such as China, and once you open them up they don't want to reseal, so you never want to mess with that. That's just simply an overpressure valve in case there's an issue with the hot water heater going over pressure. So the first thing I'm going to do is, the water's on, I'm going to go get a garden hose and connect it up to the spigot down at the bottom, and I will run the hose out to the street, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, I have the hose tightly connected to the spigot down here. Some of these use plastic spigots, some of them use brass, like this is a better quality one. And some of them have a knob here you can turn. In this case you have to use a flat blade screwdriver like this. So what you do is you put it on there, and then I like to open it up and let the water run for a few seconds like that, and that's going to flush a lot of the sediment out. And I'll go through several iterations of this so that the sediment flushes. Turn it down like that. Now one thing I wanted to mention is you really want to have a cap like this to put over the spigot, because if you have a lot of calcium carbonate, sometimes these won't close all the way and they'll still drip. And I also have a drip pan underneath, as you can see, because I installed this one and I did it right. So again, I'll go through several iterations and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. At this point what I've done is I've gone through a few iterations. I have this snug down. You don't want to make it too tight, just snug should be good enough. I'll take the hose off, put the cap on, and then I'm going to do a couple more maintenance activities on this, and I'll show you how to do those. But this is all you have to do about every 3 to 6 months to flush your hot water heater out, which will greatly increase the efficiency of the hot water heater, and it also makes it last longer. And then I'm going to show you something else that also helps it to last longer. What I'm going to do at this point now is I'm going to check the anode rod. The anode rod's a sacrificial rod that goes inside the hot water heater. It's made out of aluminum, magnesium, or zinc. If you have a zinc one, it's because you have stinky water and they use it to reduce odors. So if you'll notice, out of the input or inlet side of the hot water heater, there's a valve to shut off. We're going to shut that off. We're going to drain some of the water out of the water heater, not a whole lot. We're going to go inside the house, open up some spigots, and let the air equalize inside the hot water heater, and then we'll be able to pull the anode rod and take a look at it and see how it looks. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to shut the water off, and then I'll show you how we take the anode rod out. To remove the anode rod, you're going to need an impact driver. It's going to need to be 1 1/16, although there are some older ones that apparently are 1 1/8, but none of them are 1 inch. The reason being to keep the common homeowner from getting into the anode rods, and it's just a plumbing thing, I don't know. So if you have a 1 1/16 inch impact socket, you'll also need a large breaker bar, because the anode rod's put in with a great deal of torque. Also, it tends to weld itself in through galvanic corrosion. So we're going to go locate it on top of the hot water heater. I'm going to show you where that is, and then we're going to take it loose and take it out. Okay, on this hot water heater, the anode rod's located behind the vent. Another thing you have to make sure is that you have enough room to clear the ceiling when you pull the anode rod out. It's a very long rod, almost 3 feet or so. So if you don't have enough ceiling height, you'll never get it out. So again, I'm going to loosen this big nut up, which goes down to the anode rod, and we'll see what it looks like. And also, it's a 2-person job. One person has to hold the hot water heater to keep it from twisting, while the other person puts a great deal of torque force on loosening this big giant anode rod top nut. Okay, earlier I said we were going to try to get the anode rod out using this breaker bar and this heavy duty socket. Unfortunately, working as hard as we could, it doesn't seem to want to budge. So we need more power. So here we go. We got my big old heavy duty impact driver. We're going to try it next and see if we can't get the anode rod out. So we're going to go for that and we'll be right back. Alrighty, the impact driver worked fine. It broke it loose. So just to remind you, I have the water turned off, I have the drain valve open, and I went inside the house and opened up the hot water spigots just for a few minutes to kind of let some of this drain. I just want to make sure I don't have it pressurized. So now I'm just simply unscrewing the anode rod, and let's see if we can get it unscrewed and out of here. So I'm going to take this tool and lay it right here for the moment. This has been in a hot water heater, so it's probably going to be actually hot. Oh boy, wait till you see this. Definitely time to change it. I'm pretty sure that it is, well, it's not completely at the end of its life, but as you can see, the top part has dramatically corroded, and it's got corrosion all the way down it. So this is a good time to change this anode rod. So I'm just going to go pitch this in the recycle bin, because it's this one's actually magnesium. I could go light it on fire, which would be awesome, but I won't. So then I'll be right back and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put the anode rod in the recycle bin. I have some Clorox here. I just have a tiny bit, about a quarter to half a cup in here. And I'm going to pour it inside the hot water heater, and what that does is it kind of gives it a little shock. Now, you're going to now have some Clorox in your water, so you want to make sure that you don't be drinking any water out of the faucet for a day or so while this works its way through the system. But it does help get rid of a lot of the different bacteria and stuff that's in the system. So I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to show you how to install the other anode rod. So I'll be right back. So here's what the new anode rod looks like. Just to remind you, they come in aluminum, magnesium, or zinc. The zinc ones are usually short, and they're used for water supplies which have a lot of sulfates and stinky odors in them, because the zinc, I believe, kills a lot of bacteria. Sometimes you can get these made out of multiple alloys. Also, some hot water heaters take 2 anode rods, but if it doesn't come that way, don't add an extra anode rod, because this is simply a sacrificial rod to keep the inside of the hot water heater from being eaten up through corrosion. So this sacrifices itself. I'm going to take a little bit of this pipe thread sealant and put it around the threads so it won't leak once I put it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, put it back into the hot water heater, and snug it down really good and tight, probably around 50 or 60 foot-pounds of torque, but no more than that. Doesn't have to be super duper tight. And it will make a good metallic bond with the shell of the hot water heater through these threads, even though I'm using some thread sealant, because of the way they're made. It's definitely going to make contact. I've tried it before. I've checked it with an ohm meter, and it does work well. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll come right back. To finish the project, all you got to do is make sure you have the drain valve closed, and I put the little brass cover plate on so that it won't leak. Then I've checked up here to make sure this isn't leaking, and I've turned the cold water inlet valve back on. So I'm going to go ahead and go inside and let some water run for a little while, and then that'll allow all the air to escape out of here, and you'll have some air in the lines for a while. That's totally normal. And then you'll want to come back and check to make sure it's not leaking at the top where the anode rod goes in. But if you used a little bit of pipe thread sealant, it really should not be a problem. And again, you're going to torque it down. You'll feel when it snugs down real good and snug. So that's all there's to this video. Thanks for watching. Tschüss.